Call to order the monthly meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board. It's Tuesday, January 16th, 2024 at 5 o'clock. We're in the community room at the Frankfort Plant Board. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Member DeLong?
I can add, Jason's at home, crud.
Okay. Member Cuba?
Here.
Member Mason?
Here.
Member Snyder?
Here.
Member Debbie Mitchell?
Here.
We have a quorum. First item is, if you are a member, in December, Senator Williams had asked to speak to us, and the City Commission was meeting at the exact same time as us. So he is going to be here tonight, and he will be here as soon as they adjourn for the day. The Senate's still in, and I told him that whenever he gets here, we'd finish that item and then put him on. So we'll skip over item 1.1, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 2 on the agenda is conduct of a public hearing regarding tariff revisions related to electric refunds for multi-lot developments. This hearing will come to order. My name is John Snyder, and I've been requested by the board to conduct this hearing. With me today are board members and staff of the Frankfort Electric Water Plant Board. We are here to receive comments regarding tariff revisions related to electric refunds for multi-lot developments. This public hearing was advertised in accordance with the regulations for public notification and appeared in the January 6, 2024 edition of the State Journal. To conduct this hearing in organized fashion, we've asked that anyone wishing to comment register via email with Kathy Poe or Kathy Lindsay, and to my knowledge, nobody has registered to make a comment. This hearing will be conducted informally and voluntarily by the Frankfort Electric Water Plant Board in order to accept comments on the above item. Both oral and written comments will be accepted. Any and all persons present who wish to make a statement will be afforded an opportunity to do so. If you have a written statement to accompany your oral presentation, a copy of the written statement should be provided to the board prior to your presentation. Oral presentation should be limited to no more than 3 minutes, and if necessary, I will interrupt and request the presentation be completed due to this time limit. I may ask questions of any person presenting an oral comment where it's necessary to clarify the nature or substance of the comments. The board reserves the right to answer questions at a later date, and it is the job of the board to fairly consider various points of view and information. We want public input and involvement, and I hope you do not find our standards procedures to be restrictive. Additional oral comments and written comments will be accepted and considered if they are submitted no later than the end of our normal business hours on Monday, February 19th, 2024. To submit a comment, you can contact FPB at our number at 352-4372 or on our website at www.fpb.cc. Before we open the floor for comments, Travis McCullough with our electric department will provide a summary of the details.
Good evening, everyone. Just to do a brief recap on the developer refund policy. Obviously, over the past several board meetings, the boards have discussed the need for economic development, economic incentives, specifically for larger developments, whether it be residential, commercial, or whatever the case may be. So staff has proposed a policy that would allow for refunds based on the net benefit to the board to developers that are developing multi-lot developments. Again, no real significant changes over the past few discussions. The way we decided an appropriate refund amount would be is based on the benefit to the board. So if you look at our electric revenue, a large percentage of that goes out the door to buy wholesale power. Obviously, that's not money the board is keeping. So we base the refund amount on what the actual benefit to the board would be, and it takes out those variable power supply costs. So the idea would be, whenever a development is proposed, working on contracts, that final refund amount per electric customer would be determined at that time. But roughly speaking, you're looking at around $2,000 if it were right now today for a residential or small commercial customer, and somewhere in the $6,000 to $7,000 range for a large power customer. Think like a really large big box store, that type of customer. So again, as far as what's in the public hearing notice, no real significant changes. Hans helped me finalize some of the contract terms. I think that's in the board's package for your review. It's similar to what we've had in the past. Many years ago we did developer refund, so that language is largely similar to what we did then. It just incorporates some of these changes, the refund calculation method, that type of stuff. So again, as far as I know, no comments have been received. So I think certainly we welcome any input on that, but that's what's proposed in the policy.
Any members have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Okay. Travis, thank you very much.
All right, thank
Again,
you.
we have nobody signed up to speak. Nobody's here present. Nobody's emailed us beforehand. If there's anybody interested in this, I know there's been some talk about this with some development groups. Hopefully this helps that out. Again, we are accepting comments before we vote. We will vote on these at our next meeting on Tuesday, the 20th of February. So you have until Monday, February 19th, to either call us or visit our website to provide your comments. So thank you, Travis, very much, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Item number 3, action item, approval of minutes. Item 3.1, consider approval of minutes for the December 11th, 2023 special board meeting. Everybody should have a copy of those in front of them. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions, or changes? If not, do we have a motion to adopt? We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes adopted. Item 3.2, consider approving the minutes for the December 18th, 2023 special meeting. Again, everybody should have those in front. Do we have any changes, corrections, revisions?
Only had one question.
Okay.
I couldn't remember, Mr. Snyder, if you were there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I was there,
All right.
yeah. I remember being there.
Yeah, I remember being there.
I'm glad you remember, because I was like, wait, was he there?
Was he that quiet?
Yes.
It's so rare.
Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I am sorry. I thought it was before you do that, we need to, I was not in attendance. That was the one where you all met with NREL. I was not able to be there because I
Okay.
had work commitments.
Oh, that's right. That was
So
the one.
yes, I am sorry. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah.
I thought, I had it in my head, we had the Zoom meeting. The Zoom meeting was the last one we had was the last special meeting we had. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
This
right.
was when
I'm
we had down
sorry.
at the
That's
Capital City
right.
Museum.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I make a motion to remove my name as being in attendance on those minutes.
Should we have a motion to make a correction in the minutes to remove Mr. Snyder as being in attendance at the special meeting?
Yeah.
Does she have to withdraw her motion?
Yeah.
Hands-
You want to go and withdraw?
Do we need to
you
revote
wanna
it
withdraw
totally,
your
or-
motion?
I would withdraw the motion
Okay.
and then make a new.
Yeah. Go ahead. You want
Okay.
to withdraw? You want to withdraw your motion, Steve? You made the motion.
I didn't make
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry, I didn't make the motion.
Yeah.
I withdraw my motion.
Do we have a motion to withdraw the vote by which we adopted those minutes? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thanks to Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the board minutes to reflect the fact that I was not in attendance at the board meeting with NREL.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we now have in front of us the minutes for December 11th special meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
December 18th, special meeting.
Special meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We've adopted those minutes. Now so that's on 3.2. So
Got it.
we have both those. Item 4,
Before we go on, I was just notified that we have people that came in that might want to speak about
Oh.
the public hearing information. No?
Oh.
Okay. No,
Okay.
they're saying no.
Okay.
We can move on.
okay.
Right.
Item 4, consider accepting the financial statements for the month ending December 31st, 2023. Mr. Denton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. We have before you tonight financial statements as of December and through December 31st, 2023. Our fiscal year runs from July to June, so this is the 6 months of our current 24 fiscal year. I'd like to just briefly go through some of the things to point out for this period. Look at page 29 of your board packet, statement of net position. You can see there on line 65, total assets of just over $233 million as of December 31st, 23. You'll notice two of the things that stand out year over year comparison. Property, plant, and equipment. You can see we're almost up $10 million as we put a lot of our net revenue back into property, plant, and equipment. And you'll also notice when you look at cash and investments, we're down $3.6 million year over year. That was planned. If you look at our budget that's out on our website and the board approved, we have about $11 million planned drawdown on cash as we try to keep rates stable while at the same time investing heavily in infrastructure. So that was planned, and we are down 3.6 through the first 6 months of the year. Looking at line 135, total liabilities, just over $105 million. You'll notice something there on line 100. Bonds payable now shows 0 in that column. We, in December, paid off our electric and water plant board bonds, Series 13, so we have no more electric and water revenue bonds, with the FSN lease being our only external debt there on line 105 at $4.5 million. You take your liabilities plus your net position of $128 million, a total of $233 million, which equals your total assets, and that's where you are for December 31st. I'd like to briefly turn over to page 31. That is our bonds leases schedule. You'll notice there that very first Series 13 bonds. We did make that last payment in December, so existing debt outstanding $4.5 million on the third-party debt. And then quickly, I'd like to just flip over to page 34 and talk about financial performance of the plant board through the first 6 months of this year. You'll notice when we look at the third column and then the seventh column, comparing year over year, you'll notice our operating revenue is up $323,000 or 0.6%. But when you look at our operating and general and admin expenses, you'll notice that those have increased at a rate of 5.3%. So when you have operating, that spread of increase in revenue versus the increase in expenses, it's just at 4.7% difference there. So even though we've had some rate adjustments this year, electric and water usage continue to trend downward. We are hanging pretty consistent year over year with telecom, but that's just something I'd want to point out. When you look at the bottom line, 325, net contribution, we are down $678,000 or 11% year over year due to those changes. So that's where we are, sir, for the first 6 months of the year.
Let me ask you, and if, I don't know, is April Rhodes back there?
She is? Mm-hmm.
Maybe could she come up?
Absolutely.
A minute also?
Yeah.
You get to make a guest appearance.
Yeah.
No, my question was, is going in, I mean, obviously, we've got an extremely cold month, and going into January, given where we are financially, what's our bad debt and our delinquent payments? What are we looking like going into January? And what are you hearing or what are you seeing, and just how's that going to affect, obviously January bills are going to be significant.
Yeah, so I mean, we are making payment arrangements. I think David might have talked about this last month when he talked about our influx of, we have really high traffic days. Last month it was, I can't remember exactly what the date was. It was the 3rd or 4th, and we had another one in January. So we are making payment arrangements with customers. So we continue to work with customers month to month, and we'll continue to work with them, especially right now when we will see the influx. Of course, these, with the low temperatures now, some of those customers won't see that until like their bill coming in the next, like the end of this month. Cycle
Right.
2 customers will see some of that, and then next month, Cycle 1 customers will see that on their bill.
But we're not carrying a huge amount of bad debt into January.
No, right now, if you look at, we all went through the COVID, we know the
Right.
spike we had. We are back to pre-COVID levels on our past due balances. We actually see less number of accounts than we did pre-COVID, but balance is steady. It's around $800,000 that we carry over month to month. Technically, we used to do 2 payment arrangements a year is all we would allow, but when COVID hit and we had to go, we're directed to do payment arrangements for all customers over different periods of time. We've continued that on. And then right on the back of COVID, you've had a pretty rough economy with inflation that's really hit homes and businesses. So we continue to do those every month, which is, that's a lot of manual effort, but I really think our customers appreciate it.
It affects those wait times. I mean, the wait times that you all have seen where it's increased, that's where that's coming from, is because we are waiting on, since we are allowing more customers to make payment arrangements, that means more foot traffic in the office and over the phone. And we also have it set up that they can make payment arrangements over the portal. And we're working with IT to try to make that even better so that we have less traffic coming in and they can do a lot of it online.
Well, I kind of went out of order there, but any questions for April, David, regarding like LIHEAP and all those things while we got her up here? Sorry to just bring
Oh,
that
no,
up.
you're fine.
Okay,
You're fine. Thank you.
thank you. Does anybody have any other questions of David on the financials?
No.
Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
Move to accept the financials as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, consider approving renewal of FPB's insurance policies in the amount of $1,316,279.93. Hans and Charlie Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
And Charlie's gonna come up and announce he's negotiated a huge discount, right?
Yes, sir, that's right.
That's what I thought he
I
was
think
here
that's
for.
what his latest update is.
Yes.
I'm gonna follow your good advice, Mr. Keybine, and assume everybody can read, so I'm just gonna hit a
That
few
was what Senator
highlights.
Maloney always used to say.
Yes.
Is for the sake of the committee hearing, let's assume everybody can read and don't read to me. Yes.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. So I'll just hit a few highlights here. This is our annual renewal. It doesn't cover pollution or workers' comp. The workers' comp renews in July. So we insure a whole wide range of areas: our property, our vehicles, directors and officers coverage, cyber coverage. Some of these areas go up, some stay the same, some go down. Some notable areas: the directors and officers and the cyber stayed about the same. The cyber is probably largely to the good practices of IT. We've got the multi-factor authentication, things like that. That goes into the application and determines the rates. Other areas, of course, increase the value of the property that we have. That increases the stuff we have. Is worth more, so you pay more to insure it. We also have just higher across the board automobile rates. There's a 10-year history section, excuse me, in your digest, and I've looked at that before, and insurance runs about the same as inflation. What happens is we submit this to Charlie Hamilton, Stanley Marsnick here, and they go out to the market and they surveyed 49 different companies to see what the best combination of coverages and rates and so forth. And that's what they came up with. So I would recommend approval based on the past history and just the value of such, the value of the property we have. And I know Charlie and Stanley are here to take any other questions that we have.
You want to bring
Haven't
Charlie
seen-
up here to?
Yes, sir. Charlie's right back there if he wants to come up to the mic and see what questions we might have that are more in depth.
One of the big reasons, and David mentioned this, is that your property values went up a bunch. On the equipment, it went up over $10 million. So you're getting hit on two things: property insurance rates going up, and then your values are going up.
Yeah, and I know your thing, and you always do. I know what you surveyed, over 49 different companies?
Exactly, yeah.
Is there anything different we should be doing, could be doing, to do anything
No.
more? I mean, is it?
It's not a question of anything you're not doing. And Jim Pinkson, our loss control engineer, is spending a lot of time with JC on safety and stuff. It's just the market. What you're really seeing is just the effects of the market, and your values going up.
You have some questions while we've got Charlie here? I mean, obviously, we don't want to pay more, but it's, I think I sent you, David, today, that Brookings Institute,
Yes, sir.
that they were trying to predict inflation for the year, and they'd looked at housing, energy, auto, they looked at, and their basic bottom line was they didn't know. They basically said they looked at all these data points, and it was like, they don't know. It's just, so much of inflation's embedded, so much is, variable. They just don't know where inflation's going. So.
Well, and we have market surveys in there too, what the trends are. And so your rates are actually lower, the increases, than what we're normally seeing. And that's a testament to the quality of your business.
Does anybody have any questions for Charlie while we've got him here?
No.
Okay. If not, Charlie, thank you. And
You're
thank you
very
always.
welcome.
You always try to get us. You always work hard to find us the best rate you can. We appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Given that, do we have a motion to adopt the rates and proposal that we have in front of us?
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We had Catherine and Steve.
Okay.
Okay. So you got them, Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Hans. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, board.
Next item, informational department reports. Mr. General Manager?
Yes, sir. First, we need to have is a public information. Cassie, please.
She just rolls right out the door, you know what I mean?
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2024. Very excited for a lot of the things we have going on this year. I'll start out tonight just talking about Cable 10. Basketball season is underway, and that keeps our crew very busy. Friday night, they cover the crosstown rivalry, Frankfort High at Western Hills, doubleheader. And they look forward to more and more basketball games covering all of our local high school students. And it, like I said, keeps them very busy in addition to other things they have going on as far as creating advertising for our business customers and, of course, our live show 3 mornings a week around 10. It's going great. We, again, we are more and more seeing people who are reaching out to us that want to be honest on the show, that have information they'd like to share. At the end of the year, we had both the mayor and the county judge on for their separate times. Now they each have a time. They come on once a month and talk about things going on in the city and the county. They both came up, were on the show in December and did like a year-end roundup on things that have been happening here in Frankfort and Franklin County. So we love giving them the opportunity to talk about, just things that are going on here that affect all of our customers. In addition to that, our communications and marketing team has been really busy with our educational campaign of IWantMyFPB.com. We encourage all of our customers to go to that website, check out things that are happening that affect not only the plant board, our local employees, but things that may affect all of our customers. Again, just encourage you to go to that webpage and check it out. We made a presentation to the City Commission last week, 2 weeks ago, to talk about possible issues that may be affecting the plant board in the future, any possible legislation that might dismantle the plant board, or the possibilities and how that might affect, again, not only our company and our employees, but also rates for our customers and services, and how, again, we appreciate their support. The City Commission obviously provided a resolution of support for us, in addition to the fiscal court, which also provided a letter of support. So we're happy to report that we have unanimous support from our city and county leadership for the Frankfort Plant Board. And, we're reaching out to other leadership here in our community to see if we can count on that as well. We have a couple of things coming up. A week from today, on January 23rd, the Chamber hosts a State of the Community event. We are always a participating partner in that. This year, it is at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, January 23rd. It's a breakfast. And the last 2 years we've had it at the Foundry, but there's been so much interest that we've needed a bigger venue. So we are having it at KSU campus at the Cooperative Extension Building. And that's right there by the Exum Center, and there's a parking lot right there between the Exum Center and the co-op building. So that's at 9 o'clock. As Frankfort Plant Board members, because we're members of the chamber, it doesn't cost anything. If it's something you're interested in going to, let me know, and I can make sure I can get you guys signed up, because they just need to know how many to plan for. So,
Hence, if more than 2 of us want to go, does that create any issues? Or since it's a community event, we're just attending, does that create any problem if more than 2 of us want to go?
There's no discussion of public business if y'all are just there listening, not taking things in, if you're not kind of deliberating.
We can just attend. Okay, so if anybody wants to go, make sure they let Kathy know, so.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Again, this is the 3rd year that we've had this event and that we have participated. It is a chance for the leaders of our community to just kind of, again, give a report on the state of the community. Judge Mueller will be there, Mayor Wilkerson, Mark Kopp from Franklin County Schools, Sherry Satterley from Frankfort Independent, and then Dr. Acuppo from Kentucky State University will be in attendance and be speaking. They take questions from the audience. Any viewers that are watching that are interested in going, they're welcome to come. It's a public event. If you're not a member of the chamber, it will cost you $10. But just go to the Frankfurt Area Chamber of Commerce website, and there'll be a link where you can get registered and signed up. And that's about all I have for now, so appreciate it.
Any questions for Kathy? You're sounding better.
Getting there.
Yeah.
Baby steps. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's a knock, David Denton.
Yes, Darren's out with the flu, so I'll cover knock real quick. The
Okay.
monthly report there is on page 173. You can see there were 405 locate requests during December and over 2,000 calls entered. Customer service, I should say, the knock has assisted in the last few months, being in the customer service queue and helping us to keep those wait times in check, so we really appreciate that. And things are progressing well in that department, and that's it for the month.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next will be the customer service April.
So you're coming back again.
Wasn't for punishment.
If you had just waited.
If I just waited.
The customer service reports are page 175 to 179. Again, just pretty well a typical month. We are averaging about a 2-minute wait time between the 3 tiers. And like I said, that's up from what it previously was. But a lot of that is because of the payment arrangements and those peak days. We've got what we call the perfect storm. When the bills that are due the first, you have people that are only get paid on the third, and then you have a non-pay disconnect on the fifth. If the third falls on a Monday or a Tuesday, those days are peak days, and we can sometimes have over 1,000 customers between phone calls in the office and through the drive-through. Just kind of want to update you on a couple of projects that we have going on. Well, a project that we have going on, and give you some information about ACP. We are still moving forward with kiosks right now. We are delayed a little bit with the work that needs to be done in the drive-through. They're going to have to put steel beams out there, and with the weather, it's too cold right now for them to drill into the concrete, but that should be happening in the next week or two. And then the other thing that I'd like to discuss is we were made aware last week that the Affordable Connectivity Program is winding down. Unless Congress provides additional funds, they're looking at the money running out.
Now that's the $10 a month?
The 30.
The 30.
For the
30 a
internet
month.
service. And so that's looking to wind down. They think they'll be out of funding by about April. So we're going to have to, in the next week or two, send out notifications to customers just to let them know that it's a possibility. And then there are additional notifications that we have to send depending on whether they get funding or not. So just.
Is it in, do you know, Hans, have you checked, is it in the continuing resolution that the House and Senate have worked out, or?
The budget, I'm not sure what they've come up with, but the notices, the FCC is supposed to be putting out some template notices to customers, but they're not, of course, with the budget and everything going back and forth, you don't know what you're gonna have to do, so you're kind of watching as it goes.
Just to get a heads up, I mean, if it's already with the board, you might want, either you or April might want to contact Congressman Comer's office, because he's always been very responsive in that and getting back to us, and just ask him if it's in the CR.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because if it's not in there, then it's nowhere. I mean, because I think that CR takes them through the next
Next year and a
Yeah.
half, almost year and a half.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's either in there or it's not, so, and he would know, so.
Yes, sir.
And he's always, really good about following up and responding to us, so.
Okay, we'll reach out to him. That'll affect about 856 customers. That's how
Okay.
many customers we have on ACP right now, so. Just wanted to give you all a
Okay.
heads up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
No,
All right, thank you.
appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, next will be the Adam, the telecommunications superintendent.
Adam, I don't want to praise you inappropriately, but I will say this.
How is
Sun-
praise inappropriate?
Well, that's true. Good point. Sunday morning, going down the street on Shingle, your guys, 9:15 in the morning, it was 17 degrees. And they were out working on somebody's personal home, working on their service. I mean,
The weather brings us out.
yeah, but no, I'm just saying, I mean, that's pretty impressive that,
Yeah. No, they're cold, but yeah, they had a pretty good weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all remember, but it used to be, actually, if you look at the outage report, if you go back to like 2017 and 16, you'll notice we had a lot more outages.
Mhm.
a lot of that was because the equipment runs in thermal and AGC, and so when it gets so cold, the equipment don't know what to do, so it started acting up. And then as a part of the head end, when we built the head end, we upgraded all the actives, which remedies a lot of these issues. I mean, over time, they'll start acting up again, but that was one of the big reasons to do that upgrade, that system-wide upgrade, is to stop the outages during the cold weather. But, yeah, we actually had couple Facebook posts of some guys out working on Louisville Road. And, you know, there were a lot of customers made real positive comments.
Yeah.
Those guys were really like that.
Well, it was impressive. Yeah.
No problem. And I'll pass the word along.
Yeah.
The telecom report starts on page 181 of your board packet with customer penetrations. 182 and 183 are the outages for the month. We had one outage, which was a power supply over off Louisville Road, Hunter's Trace area. The actual trouble calls for the month are about average as they were last year at the same time. So everything looks pretty good there. On the next band front, we're working on Carwell Lane, Evergreen Road, Sunset, and Peaks Mill. We're kind of spread out. We have multiple crews working. They're doing quite a bit of splicing. Hopefully, within the next week, we'll turn on a section of Nineveh Road and Spring Hill Subdivision out 421.
Okay.
So those will be the next areas come online. So if there's any questions, I'll begin with that.
Question?
I thought I had an outage in my neighborhood, so I was patient and called you. Then the next morning I got up, I realized I had unplugged the router.
It happens. No, we don't mind those trouble calls. We work them right over the phone.
Did you put a sticky note on it now, do not unplug or something like that?
Hard night without internet.
You know, I've told you, you can always come over. I mean, you know, it's, I give you a laptop, put you on the couch, you'll be okay.
Electric Department Superintendent.
Good evening,
How you doing?
Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Russ Carter with Electric Operations. Our electric department, departmental reports start on page 185. Your budget package. You can see there on page 185 our SAIDI numbers for the month come in at 42.133. If you flip over to page 186, you can see the causes of those outages are charted there. Page 187 has the total number of interruptions for the month at 19. And then page 188 lists those interruptions by minutes of customer interruption. It's our 10 largest for the month, with a total of 431 customers affected for the month of December. 2023 was a pretty busy year for us. Looks like 2024 is starting out the same way. A lot of customer work orders and stuff, so be glad to entertain any questions you have.
Has the last couple of days been, with the first big dip, have we had much issues? I know we haven't had ice or anything, but.
Actually, we have not. We were really spared. You know, Friday it kind of set up like it did back in March, you know, coming in late in the afternoon, and we actually put an extra crew on for the weekend just in case, and we got spared. We didn't have any real major outages. The cold weather hasn't really affected us much yet. So.
Good. Excellent.
Anything else? All right. Thank you all.
Next is SEPA, Travis.
And really quick, before we get to SEPA, AMI, kind of business as usual. 14,983 on electric installs, 10,662 water installs. That puts us at about 68% complete on electric and 62% complete on water. A lot of the installs now are kind of hung up by weather. We don't want to mess with anybody's water meter, it being freezing or it being cold. We don't want to cut somebody's power off. So we're kind of playing by the weather right now, but we expect those numbers to start to tick back up, weather dependent. The SEPA report begins on page 189 of the board package. Our total SEPA bill was $81,687. The net payment was $136,266 for a profit, if you will, of $54,579, which brings us through November of 2023 for the year, net benefit of $16,620. So another pretty good year.
David's
for
on
TV.
track?
Good right now.
Oh, that's good. Mm.
Any questions on it? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the KYMEA, I really don't have much
Okay.
material change report. We had a board meeting last month, but it's before the holiday.
Okay.
So I think that their project continue going, the construction for the
Okay.
new power plant, it's their plant.
Okay.
They also form a group for the group interest in that, join that project.
Okay.
So
Any update on the Ash, how's Ashwood progressing? Do we know-
I
do we
don't
heard
have
much?
the detail. I heard it's going to be a little delay. Hope it's just months too, but I don't have the detail.
Do you
But
know?
at least they already have the contract in place,
Right.
and the panel will deliver transformer, all that. It's already transmission is ready. So it's a delay, but not a delay long time. I think it's months or few months. I don't have the detailed information.
But, could you ask him for next month, Gary? Could you ask for Doug to give us a formal update, especially since, Catherine had them put in the contract all the various triggers and that, and to see if they've hit all those triggers.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I cannot, I heard some, but
Mhm.
I mean, some of the information I cannot go detail.
Right.
Because
Understand.
there potentially could be litigation.
Mhm.
But I think they are actively working on that.
Right.
Yes, based on the agreement
Mhm.
we have.
But the triggers are in a public contract, so they ought to be able to tell us if they've hit those.
Yes, yes.
And if we need,
And required.
Yes.
and if we need closed sessions, if
Yeah.
there's litigation, we can
Yes.
do that as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yes.
yeah, I would like to hear on that too.
Yeah.
Okay, I will make sure next board meeting we have
Okay.
information available,
Yeah.
at least in writing, please.
Mhm.
Next one, if you don't have any common question. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
next is safety.
Okay. You got some explaining to do, buddy. Gonna have to
Mr.
deal with you
Chairman.
later in the meeting,
Thank
so.
you, Mr. Chairman. members
Tell
of the
everybody what
board.
you've done.
As Mr. Bond's alluded to, this will actually be my last board meeting. I've accepted a safety position with a neighboring utility. Just wanted to make sure the board know, thank you for the opportunities that were provided for me. And the staff here is amazing. You're not going to find any more Brian Bournes, Russ Carters, Jennifer Helders, Brandon Powers. I mean, the staff behind there are just amazing, great people here. And I've truly enjoyed my time. Thank you again so much for the opportunities here. Couldn't accomplish it without great support by Hans and Gary and everyone here. So, but for our safety report, it starts on page 193 and runs through 194. No recordals for the month of December, so that is great news. We did have one minor vehicle accident. One of our cable engineering vehicles scraped a concrete wall or made contact.
Made
So
contact.
that's as I like to say. But no employee injuries and just minor cosmetic damage. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
And we'd like to, and seriously, thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you so
You've done a
much.
great job, and we're gonna miss you.
This was a very tough decision for me. Like I said, it's just opportunities for my family and our lifestyle and kind of way we're moving. So I think it's going to be a good fit for us. But still keep up with everybody here. And like I said, if you ever need anything, be happy to help out in any way I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your service.
Next is the water distribution. Brian.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say JC, I've enjoyed working with JC. Safety is very important to all of us, and he took our safety program up a notch or two, and so we're going to miss you, JC, and thank you for everything you've done for our department, all the departments. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. The water distribution monthly reports on page 195 through 197. We installed 12 new services. We had 2 main breaks. We had 1 outage for the month, so pretty good month. We have more new services, which is always good to see. Besides the normal board report, we had done some little bit of work downtown. We added a hydrant for the new Broadway Hotel. We completed a service disconnect for the YMCA. They're getting ready to demolish it. During this cold snap that we've had currently, we've had 10 to 12 calls so far. Most of them have been no water, people's lines freezing up. Of course, it's going to get worse. So
When it starts to thaw.
yeah, the thaw out will probably give us more people having busted lines. So we'll be running hard then. But so far we haven't even had a main break yet. So knock on wood there. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Do you want to give any tips to homeowners while you got the floor?
Well, it's very important to always keep an eye on what the weather's going to do. That's for sure. But for the freezing temperatures, it's very important to leave your cabinets open, leave your water. If you really need to know your plumbing because there's some houses that are really insulated well that don't need to do some of the things that the older houses downtown need to do. So if you're in a house that you can have issues with freezing, you need to let your water run. You need to open up your cabinets. If you have severe issues with that, space heaters, but always make sure you're running those in a safe manner. Those are several things. And if you do freeze up, it would probably be a good idea to call the plant board, let us come down, turn your water meter off, let you maybe get a plumber or get the lines thawed out, and then we can come back and turn the water back on that way. Because if you freeze up and it ruptures when you're asleep, you can have a big mess.
And would there be a charge to a customer for us to come down and turn that off for them?
No, that's part of our trouble call service.
Right.
We're there 24/7. So.
And for a customer listening, in order over a period of time like this, 3, 4, 5 days, whatever, just to let a stream of water, about what would that do to their bill?
I mean, you don't have to have a huge stream of water, just a minor trickle through there. So you're not talking anything that it's not going to really inflate your bill that much if you use a couple extra 100 gallons of water to keep your pipes from freezing. It's not
nothing compared to what the cost of that pipe
to get a plumber out there to fix a ruptured line is going to cost a whole lot more than just taking the time to run your water. So. But those are several things to do, and like I say, if customers have any questions, they need to reach out to us, and we can give them more tips.
And folks also need to know where their shutoff is
exactly,
inside their house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of the older houses downtown, the shutoff valves, they could be in a crawl space. Right. They could get really hard to get to. And if you got elderly people that they can't get to them, they need to just go on and call us, and we'll have our trouble call guy come and get the water shut off. Yeah. So.
Thanks, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions?
All right. Does that plastic pipe?
You're talking about the PEX pipe. I mean, it just depends. I mean, copper pipe, PEX pipe. I mean, it all can. I mean, if it's on an exterior wall, it can all freeze. The only good thing about the PEX pipe is it can expand, so it can actually freeze, expand, but copper, if it freezes, it's going to split.
It's going to split.
So. Yeah.
And I've had experience with the PEX pipe. I've got a shower in a certain area of my house that will freeze and then it will thaw. I mean, it has done that on a couple of occasions. But I've got others where I have to run my. I know which faucets I have to run, which faucets I don't.
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing. Being
everybody's
familiar,
house is different.
Exactly. Being familiar with your plumbing is the key to it. So, but if you don't know, if you moved in somewhere new, it's probably a good idea.
Right.
You go on and let your water run. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thank
you all very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of December, the water treatment plant treated 228,982,000 gallons of water for an average daily production of 7.39 million gallons per day. For the year, the water treatment plant treated 2,873,113,000 gallons of water for an average of 7.87 million gallons per day. Lock 4 averaged 1,387 cubic feet per second for an average of 896 million gallons per day. And there were 2.3 inches of rainfall this month, or for the month of December. I'm be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Does that conclude all the department reports? Okay. Before we go to item 7.1, I think Senator Williams has come in. Is he coming? Senator, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all
You got the floor, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to hopefully sitting down and talking to you about some of the items that we've been discussing in public here. But I do want everybody to know that my main purpose here is economic development for the city of Frankfort. And I am looking forward to working together to work on, there's a draft bill out that was just a beginning place. I'm looking forward to sitting down with you all in a committee or whatever to discuss this. But one of the things that I would hope to see by this legislation is, and a lot of folks don't know it, is the camera over here? Or is
No,
the camera-
you're
there. Okay.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
folks aren't aware that the city of Frankfort operates under legislative statute from back in 80 years ago. Okay, the Frankfort Plant Board, the city authorized it. The Frankfort Plant Board in 1942 when they were doing this, and the founding fathers were ahead of the game, because back then, you really, as a city, you couldn't bind the next city commission to what the last city commission could do. You couldn't bond, you couldn't do anything. So consequently, we had municipal corporations, special purpose government entities that were a necessity 80 years ago. If you were a city and you were trying to operate utilities, this is something that had to be done. Now, that changed in, I think, 94. We had a constitutional amendment that enabled cities themselves to begin to do some of the bonding authority that we as just come to expect of cities today. Now, a lot of the cities continued the special purpose government entities and continue to have municipal corporations, but in general, cities can do the things that are needed to be done. And so the 96.171 to 96.188 is the statute by which the Frankfort Plant Board operates. It is the only city in 80 years that has decided to operate under those statutes. A lot of other cities operate utilities, but likely this was a combined electric and water plant board for I think a third-class city when it started. We don't have classes anymore, but that's what it was. So it was a kind of special purpose legislation that we used to do. We described something as a legislature, and there would be one or two people that could do it, and that was for them. Supreme Court doesn't let us do that anymore. That's special legislation. But this has existed to this day with no other city in the state willing to give up the kind of authority that the plant board has. For instance, most other cities, the surplus goes into the city checkbook. The city commissioners decide what to do with it. But under this statute, the Frankfort Plant Board has sole authority to decide what to do with that. Now, the city gets to approve it, or they should approve it, with the surplus. But the plant board has a lot of autonomy and a number of other things that just aren't what every other city in the state. Now, some cities run their utilities as city departments. Some run them as SPGs. Some run them as individual. So when I was here in the 90s as a starry-eyed young representative, man, Frankfort was an exciting place. I came down here. We had the convention center. We had all sorts of things going on. And I come back here now, and I got a vacant lot downtown. I have a rundown hotel, and a riverfront just is the most beautiful riverfront in Kentucky as far as I'm concerned, but it's begging to be developed on that. And I look around and I say, well, what can we do to assist the cities? One of the things, my father was a civil engineer, and he was a consultant to cities. So I grew up with him consulting cities. And one of the main, and my brother still is, not in this state. I have no interest in anything that happens here. I have none of my kids work for, has alluded for any of Charter or anybody else that has an interest in this. But water and electric are a good source of revenue for the cities. And they could generate a surplus, but right here, it's the plant board and not the city that actually controls it. So I'm looking around it and I'm thinking the other thing we have here, is that we have water and electric, which are de facto monopolies. That's why you have cities own a lot of water and electric plants, because nobody's going to lay a water line next to yours. Nobody's going to put a power line next to yours. But as you pointed out, there's 7 competitive industries in telecom. Okay, and so there's a lot of telecom going on out there. And one of the things that we're addressing right now with telecom in the state is we have $2 billion that in the next 5 to 6 years we're going to put out. I'm chairman of the state's telecom committee, a statutory committee. We had everybody involved in this process at our committee last month. Everybody from the pole owners to the attachers to the vendors that were going to provide the internet, everybody. The key shortage that we have, we're not sure if we could actually spend that $2 billion in the next 5 years because people are in short supply. That this industry has a lack of people to actually attach things on the pole. And once it's done, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of customers that need support. So this is an industry that is really taking off. But it's a very different industry. So we have a water and electric plant that are monopolies. And we have a telecom business that is very competitive. And we chose, back when we deregulated AT&T back in the day, that we were going to take telecom competitive. And then we chose about 10 years ago to totally deregulate it. So it's a competitive business. So these things are different businesses. And it was created from the surplus. Now, I'm not saying that anything was done wrong here. I'm not saying there's illegal, not saying there's anything that was done wrong, but that whole telecom business is from the surplus. And you're a combined electric and water plant board, not a telecom. So I'm looking around and saying, hey, 30 or 40 years from now, what's going to be more important for our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids? A convention center, a recreation facility, a developed downtown. And how are we going to get there? What assets do we have the city? What revenue do we have? So this is how my mind works. But as I got into it and looked, I am not trying to make that decision for anybody here. I am a strong believer in local control, and that the local city council, the local community should be making that decision. But right now, they're prevented from making that decision. That's why I was saying, can the city council? I was told, no, you got to dissolve the whole plant board in order to deal with this surplus. I don't think that's right. I'm not going to make the decision anyway. What my goal is to get the legislature out of the process, okay? I am not trying to get the legislature to do anything. There's nothing in the draft bill. And there's a lot of problems in the draft bill. I want to sit down and have a discussion. Several of your committee members know how these bills get made. You sit down, your board members, you work on these. And it was a first pass because there was so much misinformation, so much really fantasy out there about what was going on. I thought I'd just get something down, and then we can start talking about it. And that's all I want to do, is talk about where we're going, how we can get to a reasonable position, and deal with some of the realities of what we're going to face that didn't exist 80 years ago. The cable industry is essentially going away. When the plant board started in 42, nobody even, would not have believed that we do what we do with telecom, okay? And it just was not. And then they got into TV, got into cable. These guys are visionaries. They're businessmen. They saw a wave, they got on it, and they did a good job running. And your employees have done a good job. But this is a technology industry. I've got an MS&EE. It's all software. And my technology, anything I learned in school back when I got my master's is gone. I don't use it anymore. It's turned over 3 or 4 times since then, okay? Because the industry is totally different. And this is the same thing with telecom. I still believe at some point between now and the end of the century, between now and our great-grandkids, when this whole model of how cable is done, somebody has got to be able to make a decision to say, This is a competitive model. And unlike water and electric, we need to treat it differently and do something differently with it. I do not want the legislature to be impeding the local city council or your local elected officials from when the time comes to make that decision, okay? Quite frankly, I'm thinking it's coming sooner than many may think. 5G, and this is one of the things, because being in the industry, 5G is not for the remote areas. I was at a 5G conference as a legislative conference where they talked about they're going to triple the bandwidth available in 5G. And the target of 5G is your all's core customers right in the city. They put a $50,000 to $100,000 station on top of a telephone pole every other block, and everybody gets gigabit or 500 megabit and very fast service. And so that is that 5G market. And they've made it very clear as the 5G we know today, we think of as 5G, will not be the 5G 10 years from now, because they already have in process the technology to really compete with fiber and wired. And a lot of people would rather have this and move it around with them. They'll have a little router that picks up the 5G and broadcasts locally. That, you know, AT&T at home, Verizon at home, all these things are coming down the road aimed at your core customers. So again, I want to get the legislature out of telling the local officials what to do. I want to enable the local officials to do it. I think you have no problem. We get the legislature out of it, empower the local officials to deal with the surplus and be able to deal with the telecom independently of your water and sewer. I don't think you got any problem. They've already said it. They're not going to shut it down now. But there's going to be some hard decisions in the future. I'm not going to make them. I don't want the legislator to make them. I think that the local officials should make them. One of the key cornerstones of local government, and I'm a strong proponent of local government, is that a former city council cannot bind a future city council. So a future city council has the ability to unwind what a former city council did. Now, it used to be so strong, they could unwind it, any contract, anything. You know, we changed the laws, we set up in 94, so they can't unwind bonding, they can't unwind contracts, or if they try, they're gonna pay a lot of money, so they're not gonna do it. So, so there is some hesitancy, but in terms of how the city operates its utilities, within the constraints of their contracts and their bonding, the next city council we elect here, I'm not gonna have anything to do with it as a legislature. They need to be free to make the local choices that 2 years or 4 years or the next decade down the road, and not be bound to a statute that was created what would then probably be 100 years from now, okay? Just 80 years ago. So that's my goal, is to actually get the legislature out between the plant board and the city council and empower future city councils to unwind decisions that can be unwound by previous city councils. It's just local control, but nothing to force them. I'm not going to force them one way or the other. The only thing the bill I have at hand forces is evaluation on, and not even on the water and sewer, just evaluation on the telecom. Okay, I think in order to make a decision, they should have evaluation on it. So that's really what this is about. And when there is some discussion of what is or what isn't surplus, quite frankly, I've heard you say, I don't know these numbers, I heard you say you do $1.2 million of in-kind services. Well, I know you're trying to do the best. You are doing what you can for the city. And I'm not saying they're bad services, they're not saying unintended, but that surplus, that's for the city council to make. It's not for the plant board. The way I read the statute, even as it is now, it's not for the plant board to decide what to do with their surplus. Every other city council in the state that has this, I mean, it's the city council that decides. So that's really what I'm looking for, is say that's the city council. You don't, we have AT&T here in the community. They go to the Chamber of Commerce, They live among us. Their workers live here. All sorts of people live here. They pay property tax as well as collect the utility tax, okay? You collect the utility tax, but you don't pay the property tax to the schools. You decide how the schools should use whatever money, and I don't know how much money you give them, and I don't know how much the property tax should be, but that's the school board. They're elected officials. They set a property tax for people, and they're the ones that decide how that's spent. Everybody wants me, and I'm a strong proponent of fee in lieu of service, okay? I want the state, and I think the state absolutely should pay much more in fee in lieu of service than they do. And I'm working on some ways to try to make that happen. But you're authorized to pay school board taxes as fees I say in lieu of service, in lieu of taxes, excuse me. Fees in lieu of taxes. And you haven't done that. And it's hard for me to go to another 135 other legislators and say, hey, we need to get money here. We need to have fee in lieu of taxes for the state to pay the city of Frankfort, but the Frankfort Plan Board is not paying fee in lieu of taxes to the school board, okay, or to the city, which they could do. So I was trying to address that in the bill, okay? I think it will help me in trying to extend the fee in lieu of taxes statewide. One of my other concerns is just the structure, and this is not unique to the plant board. And I don't know how quite to address it. I'd like to sit down and talk to you about that. Is 1/3 of your customers do not live in the city of Frankfort, okay? So we now have a situation that I love my co-op. I've got a co-op. We got lots of co-ops around the street. They're ratepayers. I can go to the annual meeting. I can vote on my board members. I can nominate board members. I participate in it. They make it a very participatory process. But 1/3 of your members can't even vote on the city commission or the mayor. And I don't know that the third is an accurate number. I've just been told, so you can correct me on what that is. But they have no say. And my co-op is regulated by the Public Service Commission. Okay. And you're not. Because and I'm not saying that municipal utilities should be, because they're not regulated by the PSC, because they get to vote on the commissioners and the mayor that appoint the board. However, I got a structural problem here, because 1/3 of your ratepayers have no say in your structure. I've been told that if one of you all were to move to the county, you'd take them off the board. I don't know, maybe it's outside your service area, maybe it's to the county. But that to me just seems like a structural inequity. You're sort of caught between a municipal city utility and a true ratepayer utility, where the ratepayers are really decide what happens and do the nominations for the board. So again, you have this unique structure that no other municipality in the state operates under. And when I look around in this day and age, I'm thinking we need to have a conversation about that. My goal is to get the legislature out of that and be much more local control. That's all it is. So what I'd like you to do, I sent a couple letters to talk to y'all individually, and I've talked to Chairman Cubine and Gary, and I had another meeting with Steve, but I'd like to sit down. Maybe you could form a committee. We can sit down and talk about things in the bill. There are things in the bill that I need to be changed, okay? I mean, there's this terminology on transfer is really just a placeholder. I don't know how to do that. The time frames are too tight, okay? I'm not really intending that to be there. I was just getting things out so we could have a discussion on this. And that's really, we got plenty of time in this legislature to sit down and discuss how we can better provide local control to the city and better serve the ratepayers that live in the county. And I was elected from the city and the county. That's really what I'm about. And if you all have any questions for me about the bill or about anything you want to do, but I would hope at the end of this meeting or sometime that you would appoint, if you don't want to come to me individually, that's fine. But if you want to appoint a committee to come up there and sit down and talk about this bill and talk about the changes that I think need to be made so that the legislature gets out of the process now and for the future, and so that the city council is better empowered to make decisions that the next city council will make about their utilities, because these are city utilities. Okay, so that's really what I'm talking about. I'll open up to questions if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Senator Williams?
Well, thank you for being here.
Oh.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Senator. I had just a basic question, but I think you've answered it. You've not filed the legislation yet. We've seen BR 497.
I did a draft and I sent it out to the city, the county, and you all. And unfortunately, I would love to have published that, but they've taken away our ability to really, as an official document, publish BRs. You know, I could publish it on a website. I thought you guys could publish it on your sites, which is probably more, but I have not dropped the bill because I'm not happy with the bill the way it exists. And I want to have conversations with you all. I've twice sent letters asking you all to meet with me. We had a couple early conversations where we met, but not really since the bill draft came out. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Okay, so you don't have a bill drafted that you are going to file yet?
Well, I have a bill drafted.
But not the actual language that you
Well,
want to file?
It's a starting point in the language, okay? And that's, you draft it and then you talk about and I didn't do it. I had a bill drafter do this. And this whole thing about special purpose government entities, this is not something that I just woke up one day and invented, the city and SPGEs. This is something that Adam Edlin, as auditor back in 2012, did an audit of special purpose government entities. Because remember, we had this 60 years of things where the city's only recourse was to create special government entities to do all utilities and all sorts of things, okay? And so we arrived here in 2012, that's actually was over 70 years, and having changed that where they can do it, we had all sorts of special government entities throughout the state that were really not under the control of the city councils. And it was the League of Cities that actually supported, at that time, stronger regulation for the audits, which you guys comply with, and you do your audits. I look at them. And so you're a special purpose government entity, and really tried to return control back to the city elected officials. That's the key. When I talk about local control, I'm talking about local elected officials. Those are the people that they do that. So these special purpose government entities, we're still sort of going down the path of restoring true local control to elected officials at the local level. So this is something, I'm on state and local government. We get a report every year on SPGs and how many we have and what those are. And so that's part of this whole process. So this is not anything new to the state, and it's something that really, it's not a partisan issue. This is a Democrat-Republican thing, and it's a city-county thing as well. It's not city, it's not county. Everybody has to deal with these SPGEs that we're trying to, they make sense in a number of places. I'm not trying to eliminate them, okay? The legislature's not, but we're trying to make them responsible, reportable to elected officials. So it's not just picking on the plant board. Although you are the only one that operates under 96.171 and 96.188. And there are some others that they have shut down in the past too, that really special purpose legislation. So that was a long answer to probably, I'm not even sure, a question. Okay, but I'll be glad to answer anything else.
All right.
So,
Any questions for Senator Williams? Okay. If not, Steve?
No, I just say, I really don't have a question now. I guess I have to wait to see the final bill.
well, so are you saying you just want me to draft something without any further input from you all? I mean,
No, I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that you asked if I had a question now. Don't have one.
Well, I would love to sit down with you, as we sat down once before with Gary, and talk about some of the details and talk about what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. You know, it's not productive, and you know how this works. You got what's going on out here, and everybody's saying this and that and rumors, and the only thing that flows down, more than water flows down the Kentucky River around here is rumors, okay? I mean, and people are misinformed. And quite frankly, I think you are misinformed. I have another thing where I could walk down all of the misinformation that has been published. I don't believe you should be spending $100,000 to hire a lobbyist and to do a PR firm. But if you want me to, I could address all the misinformation. But I don't think that's really productive to do here. What I like to do is productive stuff. I want to have a conversation. I think there are members of this community that want to have a conversation. And you know from knowing me before, I don't intimidate, okay? And I feel like there was an attempt to intimidate me in spending $100,000 on this publicity and putting up billboards. You're intimidating your local officials. That's not something that I think is a wise thing, is a wise expenditure of the plant board's ratepayer money. I think you've overstepped your bounds on that. That's my personal opinion. But I will be glad to sit down and work with you on the bill on that. That's what I want to do. I would like you all to form a committee. Now, if you're not going to do it, let me know. I'll work with some others and do the best I can to get to what I think is the best operational going forward that gets the legislature out of the process. But I think you might want to have some input into that, and I'm a reasonable guy. I think that's what we're talking about, sitting down and reasoning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda is item 7.1. Consider approving rails renewal. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Staff recommends approval of the Reels renewal. This is an NCTC agreement with a term through December 31st of 2026. Reels is on channel 100 on the optional preferred cable package and contains programming related to or connected to true crime, investigation, and celebrities. It is the 10th most watched preferred cable network. We've carried it since 2012. The rate reset and annual increases are below budgeted numbers. TVE rights are included in this agreement, and no additional carriage requirements or obligations are included in this agreement. The Assistant GM for Administration has reviewed it, and it meets with his approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this item.
Do we have any questions for Harvey? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Item 7.2, consider approving tennis channel amendment. Harvey?
Thank you, sir. Staff recommends approval of the tennis channel amendment. This is another NCTC agreement with a term through December 31st of 2028. We currently carry tennis channel on preferred cable, channel 151, and it's the only 24-hour television-based multimedia destination dedicated to the tennis sport and lifestyle. Authenticated rights are included in this agreement. Rate increases are below the budgeted amounts, and there are no additional carriage requirements or obligations. And staff attorney has reviewed it and meets with his approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Okay. Any questions for Harvey on this one? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Okay, Harvey. Item 7.3, consider retransmission consent agreements with Gray Television Group, WKYT and Wave TV, Morris Network, WTVQ, and Hearst Properties, WLKY.
Thank you, sir. Every 3 years, FPB must renegotiate our retransmission consent agreements with all of the local broadcasters in Lexington and Louisville. If you recall, at the December meeting, the board approved agreements with Scripps, that's for WLAX, which is the NBC out of Lexington, Nexstar, which owns WDKY, the Fox out of Lexington, and Tegna, which owns WHAS, the ABC affiliate out of Louisville. Over the past 30 days, staff has continued to negotiate agreements with the remaining 4 broadcasters. We had hoped to bring the Gray agreement to you all tonight, but the NCTC is continuing to negotiate with Gray. They had an initial extension through January 12th, and an additional extension was just signed through January 19th. So that's for WKYT. the CBS out of Lexington and waive the NBC out of Louisville. We'd expect to bring those to you guys in the February meeting. At this point, staff is presenting 2 agreements for your consideration tonight. The Morris agreement, Morris Network for carriage of WTVQ on Channel 8 and My TVQ on Channel 18 through December 31st of 2026. And then with Hearst Properties for carriage of WLKY, the CBS out of Louisville on Channel 12, and that's through September 30th of 2028. Staff and the Cable Advisory Committee recommend approving these agreements for WTVQ and WLKY, and anticipate bringing the gray agreement for your consideration at the February meeting. The staff attorneys reviewed these agreements and meet with his approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
You might, Harvey, for the record, I'm sorry.
Hold on a second.
Go on, John.
Yes, Harvey, I believe you said something. You said one of those was going to expire September 30th of 28?
Yes, sir. Hearst had asked if we would be interested in doing a 5-year agreement.
Oh, okay.
And they kept the rate increases. They're not flat, but they're under 3% on those
Okay.
years out. So we felt
All right,
like
sure.
avoiding that reset was worth the extra couple years.
And the September 30th is usually a different date than what most of the broadcasts do.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
is
I
there
love
a
not
reason
doing
behind
8
that?
of these at
Yeah,
the same
I
time. So.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other question I have is if the gray agreements, the 19th, it's always this brinksmanship, and it's always this, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
If they do come to an agreement, would we need to have a special meeting, or would we have time in order to approve?
There's generally an opt-in window the NCTC and the programmers will agree to. It's generally a month, so I would say that we should be clear to last until February.
Okay.
And we'll certainly let you know if that's not the case.
If not, we can always do a Zoom meeting to approve whatever we need to approve. And one other thing, do you think they will come to an agreement by next week or the end of this week now?
I'm not for sure. I think they're pretty far away. They made a little bit of progress, but I think they're not on bad terms. I think they're both committed to getting to an agreement, but I think they're still pretty far apart. So it's possible we get another extension.
And you might, for the record, Harvey, I know you did last month. You might, for the record, explain again how this works in terms of the broadcast channels, federal law.
Sure.
And that they have to be paid for us taking the signal out of the air free.
Yeah. These signals are available for free over the air. The rules and laws that cover the retransmission consent policy was established in the Cable Act of 1992, which was, things were a lot different back then. But for a long time, the broadcasters were happy to have the cable operators distribute the channels at no charge. And then they started to see that there was an opportunity to generate money, and that changed here about 15 years ago, and now it's a major source of revenue for these media companies, and so we try our hardest to keep the rates as low as we can, and also obviously we have the Louisville stations too. We think are important to our customers, and trying to balance those, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of regulation that we have to deal with on the retrans deals.
And there's basically 3 parts on the customer bill. There's our cost, which has been the same for
20 years.
20 years. That has not gone up.
That's right.
Then there's the part which is the retransmission.
Yes.
And that total cost is what about?
Today I think it's $27-ish, and then we'll likely start the process to increase that rate when you guys approve this last agreement. Once we know what the number is.
And so that's a pass through.
That's
and then
a
the last
pass-through.
part is
the cable
programming like Disney, CNN. ESPN and so forth.
That's a pass-through as well.
Right.
So we try to be clear on the bill about what part stays here in Frankfurt, which is $12.79 of your cable TV bill, and the rest is all leaving town.
So today, what action are you asking us to take, given the fact that the gray networks are still in question?
WTVQ and WLKY are the 2 that we had done that we're asking you guys to approve tonight. And then we'll come back in February with the gray agreements.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, for the order, I'd like to make a motion to approve the retransmission agreements with Morris Networks for WTVQ and My TVQ, and as well as Hearst Properties for the carriage of WLKY.
Okay.
For the
and
term
no action
stated.
on the
For
other
term
2.
Stated.
Right. We have the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Do we have any further questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you all.
Item 7.4, consider award of RFP 2023-5, FTTP Network Design to Finley Engineering in the amount not to exceed $493,725. Adam.
Yes, sir. Staff sent out an RFP for engineering help work. I'm sorry. And we received 3 responses on November the 16th. Staff scored the companies and would recommend Finley Engineering for to do the design work for the fiber to the home and also the county project. Finley's been around for a long time. They have 70 years experience with telecom and electric plant engineering. They have a local office in Lexington, Kentucky. The board might remember the spring of 23, our engineering firm we were using got acquired by another company. And so at that point in time, we had some of the county stuff going on, we had a walkout going on, and we also had our overbuild. And so they basically said they could focus on one thing, so we put them on the walkout, so that would be a completed project we could put behind us. And so with them doing that, we fell short on engineering about 30% of our current overbuild area and 20% of the new county project. And so that's what we're asking the board to do, is to agree to a contract with them to provide those services.
Steve?
So can I assume, Adam, that 40% of that 493 is gonna be on the county build out, the 20 out of the 30, 50 altogether?
It will be close. So what we've done is, that number is kind of like, we're thinking we'll have this many permits that we'll have to get for the county, this many for an overbuild. So it depends if those numbers hold true, that will be about right. So I think we'll be a little bit over on the county side, but the good thing about it is the engineering of that whole project's only 5% of the total cost. And I think we'll have enough to make up for that, for anything that we're over on the county project, sir.
So will we favor the city side first, since we're still, I guess, a little bit up in the air?
We're really, we're hoping to get everything done in the next 12 months. So it's going to be whatever we can focus them on as far as, so if the grants come in, we have a timeline there. We got another item later to discuss that. So really it's going to be, they will give so many staff our overbuild area and so many staff our new build. The new build will probably take a little bit longer just because of the amount of permits we'll have to have, some railroad crossings and those things that take time, so we want to get a head start on those.
Any other questions of Adam on this contract? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
So
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Contract's approved.
Thank you, sir.
Item 7.5, consider award of bid invitation number 1797, metal poles to Gresco Utility Company in the amount of $59,430. Jennifer?
Good evening. This was just a bid for normal inventory item of metal poles. And a full load of those, it exceeds the bid amount. So the low bidder met the specs, and they actually have the lowest lead time also.
Any questions for Jennifer? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Contract's approved. Thank you. Item 7.6, consider appointment of interim safety director, Michelle and Hans. And this is totally because of JC's actions, right?
It's all JC's.
It all is JC. Totally uncalled for.
Good evening, board chair and members of the board. FPB's current safety director has accepted a new position, and his last day would be January 22nd of 24. Staff asked the board to move to appoint Tyler Fitch as the interim safety director. As there are only 2 full-time safety individuals in the department, staff plans to post the position as soon as possible. Questions?
Now, the other option would be is not to process JC out. therefore forcing a standoff with him, right?
Right.
Yes. Well, obviously you didn't do well enough, Gary. So, do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second? We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I nothing against Tyler, but I would like my aye vote to be recorded as being under protest.
That's right. The next one, item 7.7, consider retaining Blue and Company LLC to conduct the 2023-24 financial audit for a fee of $39,850 as required by KRS 96-185. And David, before you cover it, if I could add, as you all know, we've had Blue and Company, and David's going to cover it for 3 years. Both the Government Finance Officers Association and Sarbanes-Oxley recommends you rotate at least every 5 years. So technically, Blue has 2 more years. If you notice, David put the chart in here. David contacted him. Alan Norville, who's the partner who was with us last month, joined us by video, proposed an increase. We went back to him and said, we think we'd like you to reconsider that. He came back, if you noted in the boxed area, you can see he came back, lowered his projected rate increase down. There is a new audit standard, which, correct me if I'm wrong, David, deals a lot with cloud-based systems and so forth that we have some of, which is a new audit standard, has to be complied with. And in the discussions with him, basically, we asked him for a 2-year price, and that's what he's quoted here. And I think he's agreeable, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, David, that if we want to go with him this next year, and we have the option to rebid, we can go with him this year with the provision that the price he's quoted here would hold for the following audit year, and either party could notify the other one within the first 15 days of next January and say either we want to do it for another year or no, either they don't want to do it another year or we want to go out on bid. But he did give us a firm price for the second, which would be the second and last year of the engagement, if we want to go that route. So I'll turn it over to you, Dave, but I want to give everybody the kind of that background of, I mean, we were responsive. We asked him to get back to us, and we told him at this meeting we need to deal with either were we comfortable with this arrangement or did we want to go out on a rebid. I mean, I did not say this to Alan at the time, and Gary and I and David talked, and I got to be the good guy or bad guy and call Alan and say, we want you to cut your price. But we can go out on rebid, given the market. Normally, from my experience, and I think David's similar, normally when a firm bids you a price, the first couple of years are the worst because they're getting to know the client. That's your heaviest load. And then by the 3rd year, they know the engagement, they know the problems. Their costs start, if there's any economies, that's when they're picking it up. I don't know what the market would be if we rebid. I think the cost they're looking at here is probably about what the market is, from what I understand, David. And you probably ought to take it from here before I just step in a big old puddle.
No, we don't have a standalone audit committee. The board is the audit committee.
Right.
So it's really the board's decision on how you want to move forward.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything else to add. It's we could either accept what they put for us or move forward with an RFP for another audit firm.
Well, I kind of agree with what you're saying, John. That I like the 5 years. We've been in a switchover where they took over and started new, and it is it's a good way to keep things going. I guess the question is, if you're asking for a motion here, does this motion need to be amended to include the language of locking in a price that can be opted out of for the 2nd year, or do we want to 2 years, or how do we want to handle it?
I mean, I think in fairness, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, I think the discussion we had with Alan Norville is we asked for a 2-year price for each year, and he's quoted that here in this information. But we also said we wanted the ability, and that we wanted to afford him the ability that, he does the next one, then come this time next year, if we either say, look, we're just not happy now, we want to go on rebid, or he says, I don't want to do it again for that 5.5%.
Okay.
I want to rebid. Either one of us can walk.
That's
and
right.
if neither one of us walks, then he's guaranteed a price for next year.
Okay.
But either party has the ability to walk next year also during that first part. Is that the way you understand, David?
It is, and we have taken this a year by year. We brought agenda items to the board asking to accept an engagement for the next or the current year we're in. So we could do the current year engagement, and we'll bring it back automatically anyway.
No,
next year.
as long as our understanding is that this the 42,000 number will be the number next year, and if they don't want to do it for that, they'll withdraw. They won't bid on it. So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
And
fine.
what we basically did, we asked him to look at his rate this year and to basically give us a rate spread out over 2 years, and he did that. But he understands, and we understand, both parties have the ability next January to say, nope, we're out. So
we'll be asking Mr. Norville for an audit engagement letter for the current 23-24 fiscal year ending June 30th, 24. And then if the board would approve, we would ask Chairman to sign, and then we'll just do this again next year,
Right.
assuming everything's the same.
2025.
Well, we'll always have the
I
option.
know it. I mean, if you formalizing the action, that's all.
yeah.
Well, what I'm assuming is we've already formalized it here, because if they come back, I'm fine either way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hans, how should we word this? How do you think it ought to be constructed?
Good.
I've got a suggestion. It's just to ask to consider approving or to approve Blue and Company audit engagement for the 23-24 fiscal year. And then we'll just do this again next year. I think, as Mr. Snyder said, I think this will be the price. And if it's not, then we can just do something else.
Right.
So I think 1 year at a time would just
It
take care
has
of
the
it.
same effect.
It does.
If we lock it in with an opt-out, then if they don't want to do it for that price, they're not going to do it for that price.
I'm not arguing the point.
All right. I'll make the motion to retain Blue and Company for the 23-24 financial statement audit for a fee of $39,850.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Approved. And David, you'll convey to Alan what our discussion is.
I will,
so forth.
and we'll ask for the letter and let you know when we get it.
Okay. Item 7.8, I'm going to attempt to do this on behalf of Jason. As you know, Jason has been looking at, apparently there is a USDA grant available for solar, which basically could result in enhanced funding, which, as I understand it, I know you've talked some to Jason, I've talked some, which could bring the match somewhere in the realm of 80 or 90% match. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not, other than it's a USDA REAP grant, I'm not sure. I know Kathy and I sent the ordinance.
Right. USDA had asked for some information.
And from what I understand, the USDA person came back and said he thought we would be eligible to apply. And that's what I've heard today.
So I think what Jason wanted to bring in front of the board tonight is, if we concur, he would like us to take the next step and confirm that eligibility and that we can participate. We would not be applying for a grant at this point, but we would be taking the step to confirm with USDA what the matching requirements are, and if we in fact are eligible apparently one of the criteria was you had to be a municipal utility independently appointed. They're saying, looking at our ordinance and our structure, we meet that requirement, but they need to confirm it, and we need to ask formally for that to be approved. So I think what Jason wanted to ask is to authorize staff to take the next step and confirm our eligibility, and then if they confirm it, then bring it back for what would be a formal grant request or application for us to proceed. But obviously, if it can be done for 80 or 90% match, that makes the customer cost very low. So on behalf of Jason, and hoping if he's watching that I didn't screw it up too bad, I would like to ask, had Jason been here, to ask that staff be authorized to take the next step, confirm with USDA that we in fact are eligible, and then lay out what the next steps are and bring it back to the board.
I would be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? And Jason, if you're watching at home, I did the best I could. Item 7.9, consider proceeding with the easement preparation for the Franklin County broadband expansion. Adam.
Yes, sir. May of last year, the board approved a contract with Fisher Company to do the easement. preparation, but there was a contingency on it that I actually went back and watched the video and caught that it was based upon final approval from the state.
Okay.
We have pretty much a verbal,
Mhm.
so we probably need to proceed so we don't get so far behind. And actually, we went from 800 down to about 450, and this was one based on the walkout data that we had from the last engineering firm, and the fact that the scope had shrunk a little bit as far as the county project. But we're really running out of time to get these together and get them signed. It's going to be the big holdup with the project, so we're asking the board to go on and let us.
And it was Mr. Snyder's motion, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Once again, it's all my fault. So we can go ahead and let's go ahead and direct staff to begin the easement preparation for Franklin Broadband as explained just here.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Ruth?
Does that make up for it, Adam? Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, item 8.1, power supply RFP discussion. Travis?
Good evening again, everyone. So at the December board meeting, the board indicated they were ready to get the process started on a power supply RFP. As everyone's well aware, coming up in 2029 that we'll be in need of a new power supplier. So we've been working on getting that RFP document together. We've had several conversations with GDS on it. I feel like we're converging on a direction we need to go. Gary's helped a lot, kind of putting the input into that. We don't quite have the RFP document ready just yet. I know the board said January, but so that's where we're at in the process. There's a few issues we're trying to work through to get a final RFP document ready, just making sure everybody's on the same page. One of the issues is the discussion around transmission rights. So as of right now, as a KYMEA customer, they handle all of our transmission service. Obviously, going forward, we'll still be connected to KU's system. Physically, that's not going to change, but we're trying to better understand what that arrangement will look like. What do our transmission rights look like? So that's an issue we're working through. I think it's more just formalizing it. I don't expect any surprises there, but just stepping through the process. Another one we're trying to work through is some of the ongoing power supply agreements that will survive past the end of our KYMEA AR contract. How do we handle those issues? We know we're going to have some resources beyond the end of that 2029 date. We want to make sure we have as good understanding as possible on what that looks like, because there's a lot of value to that. So if we're going to engage vendors here soon, we want to understand what that is and want to make sure we really capture that value. So it's really just a matter of when we go to the market to engage vendors, they're going to know exactly what they want. I want to make sure we know exactly what we want, so we're negotiating on even ground. So that's kind of where we're at in the process. GDS asked for another 3 months to kind of step through some of these issues. So if that doesn't give the board a lot of heartburn, that's kind of where we're at on it. They want to have more meetings with us, get the transmission group engaged, have stakeholder meetings. That's kind of what they've proposed. So assuming the board is kind of okay with that timeline, I know, again, I understand the board wants to start making progress, and we're obviously receptive to that. But so anyway, that's kind of where we're at on the RFP.
Sure. Thank you, Travis. I brought this to the board's attention last time, and Gary and I have had some discussions about it. And honestly, one of the reasons I started talking about it in December was I wanted to give us as much lead time as possible. And personally, I'm fine with a GDS working very deliberatively with the staff to make sure that we come up with an IRP that dots all the I's and crosses all the T's, make sure we're covered. The benefit of us doing this now is we do have some time to do it. So when we can actually go through this entire process, and if we end up with nothing, then we can almost retrench and go back and start again if we have to. So I am fine with 3 months, and I don't think we need to take any action or anything, but I just want to express my appreciation to Travis and Gary and all the staff for working through this, because it's going to be vital for us for the next decades ahead.
And so the timeline would be, Travis, in the next 2 to 3 months, at the end of that, bringing something back to us
Yes.
before it actually goes on the street. Is that correct?
For our approval.
I
Yes.
think that would be appropriate, yeah, that
Yeah.
would be my assumption.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the informational item.
right.
There's,
Yeah,
we don't have to take any action, but
Okay, thank you.
appreciate it. Travis,
Thanks,
thank you.
Travis.
Steel Steak property discussion. Do we have any, we've got that on here, is there, we know we've had some interest from the city in possibly in that process, but we're in the process of evaluating that and responding back to them because we've got some operations in that building. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what all.
Okay.
I really don't have any information.
Right.
I will plan to set a meeting with city manager
Mm-hmm.
to discuss in the details, see what they needed, and how do we work out our current operation, which is our internet service and others.
Mhm.
We still have equipment in that
Right.
building. And it sounds like to me it's pretty expensive,
Mhm.
almost impossible to move all of them out
Mhm.
of there. So can we find the medium, something we can all work together?
Mhm.
We'll try that. If that's
Because there's
feasible.
some empty space in that building, but whether it's usable and whether it's practical, you're going to explore that with the city manager. Okay.
We actually, I met him once, and Adam later went to show him the details.
Mhm.
The city wanted to have, they not have to do the roof.
Mhm.
Adam probably,
Okay. Okay, informational item, general managers? Okay.
okay.
Do you want me to do this? About
I
the
probably need a hard
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go
We had a question from a member of the public about our closed sessions and some of the requirements surrounding the closed sessions. Generally speaking, the requirements for closed sessions are laid out in KRS 61-815. And to go into a closed session, that section lays out, you give notice in a regular meeting of the exception that you're going to use and kind of a brief discussion of what that exception encompasses. If it's pending litigation, say regarding a contract or purchase of property, and then match that to the exception. Then there's a subsection 2 down there that says there's an exception to those requirements depending on the exception in the Open Meetings Act that you're citing. So sometimes, depending on the exception, you wouldn't have to comply with those requirements. Just as a rule of thumb here, I've always just cited the exception in a brief discussion of the business just because it's easier to comply with. If you do that, you're never having any problems. So that's to get into a closed session. To come out of a closed session, you vote to come out of the closed session, and then you take any action that you were discussing in the closed session. You have to take that in public. That's one of the requirements that's laid out there in 61-815. So at the December meeting, and one of the things we've been doing is to advise staff to proceed as directed. Like, for example, with me as the staff attorney, the board discusses with me and kind of gives me my marching orders. And there was a question about, well, what exactly is meant by that motion to proceed as directed? And that's what the board meant by that motion at the December meeting, was to direct me to take certain steps with regard to my work. And those communications for a public agency and a private agency and individuals as well, those communications are privileged, and that's kind of the basis for the exception. Then there's some things that transparency and is a I mean, I live in our kind of governmental system too, so I appreciate the transparency for public agencies, but some things would be harmful to a public agency. Say if the board said, Hans, I want you to settle that case for $100,000, or Hans, we're going to buy property at 123 Jones Avenue.
For this amount of money,
up to this amount of money. All of a sudden, there's no negotiation, and that's actually harmful to the ratepayers and to the public. So that's the basis for the exceptions. So that's what was meant at the 12-11 closed session. We discussed the various litigation matters, directed me to take certain steps, and the board took no other action at that 12-11 meeting other than to advise me to take certain action. And that's what was meant by the proceed as directed motion. And the individual that asked this question was kind enough to send along a kind of a circuit court case that kind of laid out some of the differences in the 61-815. There's a Supreme Court case and some Attorney General opinions that say, you know, this exception means what it says, and a board could in fact take action in closed session. That's what the Supreme Court says, and that's what what some of the AG opinions ruled. And there's a circuit court case, and I can't recall the circuit that it came out of now, that said no, that's really not what what this subsection 2 exception stands for, and I kind of disagree with that. But to date, that's not really been appealed, and the Supreme Court case is kind of the governing authority, but our board has never taken action, to my knowledge, in a closed session, and we comply with with what those requirements are there in subsection 1.
You have responded back to that citizen in writing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And I will confirm. I will confirm tonight that we've taken this step, and I just ask the board to take.
If you want me to answer, I'll make the motion. Do you want me to? Do we need to restate that motion, or do we need to?
I think I just make a motion to going forward to the extent that we can without waiving any privileges. We'll make any motions in open session to be as descriptive as we can.
Okay. All right.
And
So do we need to make that motion and act on it?
Yes, sir. I would ask them.
I will go ahead and make that motion. Now, like Hans said, though, I mean, a lot of times it's going to come out and it's not going to sound a whole lot different,
Right.
because it's going to be, we're going to direct you to take action in the litigation discussed rather than proceed as directed.
Yes, sir.
So you might not get a whole lot more information. You'll have maybe a more general idea of what was discussed.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I will make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion second. All those in favor
Thank you.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. And just as a kind of a footnote, there's really no requirement that we take action out of the closed session
Right.
as well.
Correct.
I think the central point is that whatever action the board takes needs to be taken in open session and as descriptive as the case will allow. So thank you. I know
Thank you.
that our question.
And thank you for handling this and everything you've done on this.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, item 9.2. David, has been both you and Adam's kind of been on the point on this. Do you want to give everybody a status on our pending grant, and then what we're hearing about the new application process for the next round of funding?
Sure. The current broadband deployment grants, my understanding from the Kentucky Office of Broadband Development is that our grants the board approved, the 7 have moved on for final signature.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect any day we would get correspondence saying, with a signed document,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll just take off from there with the whole.
And that's for the 884 homes.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, sir. As far as BEAD funding, my understanding is that the draft documentation that the Office of Broadband Development has sent to the feds is in a review stage, so we haven't had any official call to action on the BEAD money. So I think we're going to wait and see just how that process moves forward. So there's no action to be taken on BEAD at this time.
Right, and we're just waiting to hear. And I think, we've had in our communication with the county is, in terms of another application for the remaining areas, what we've told them is as soon as we know as soon as those rules are published, we'll forward them on to them, and then they need to advise us how they want to proceed in terms of participation, and then we kind of go from there, and that will come back to the board. And that would be for the remaining, about 1,100 homes or so?
That's
approximately. Next is, as you all know, I guess this was the meeting that you were at. Yes. We had a briefing from the night that NREL presented their report to the City Commission. We were invited, and we properly noticed it, to a briefing they had with the city commissioners and us down at the Capital City Museum. And they reviewed it, and we got the report the next morning and are reviewing it. And at this point, Travis, tell us where we are.
Okay, be happy to. So we've received the full report from NREL and the city. We've gone through kind of the initial review process on the report. We also went ahead and reached out to 1898 and Company just to kind of feel out if they could help help us review the report. A lot of it goes into, it's a lot of financial analysis. So we've asked them to just kind of informally at this point review it and see what their thoughts are. I've got a call with Craig tomorrow and to see if we need to take that process forward, if the board is interested in doing a more formal analysis with them. I think that's something we can explore.
And NREL told us that day that they had not used the rates we adopted in June in that report. Is that correct?
I
The
think
rates that
that's-
1898 helped us do?
That's correct, and that's the reason that we kind of engaged them. So as of July 1st, you know, we made changes to the municipal and gratis rates. We retired those and moved everybody into the commercial and industrial rates as appropriate based on their usage. So those rates being retired and which rate NREL used for their analysis, I think is going to be really key to understanding, you know, how we're going to go forward. I think if they used an old rate, it drastically changes the financial picture. So we need to understand that better in conversations with the city, help potentially get Craig to help us understand if we see the savings the same way. I think our initial review of it is going to be a little bit difference of opinion, primarily because the old municipal rate was a bundled energy rate. And we had a lot of conversations about this, the difference between a bundled rate and a demand rate. So several of their accounts now are going to have a demand charge. And if you were all solar or potentially all solar, you need to understand what happens to that demand charge. Obviously, a day like today, bitter cold in the morning, if you've got electric heat, you're going to have a demand charge regardless of how much solar you have. It's not going to change it. So we need to analyze that and understand if there's agreement there on the way their rate was accounted for. I think that's the first step. And just kind of more conversations with the city, having a better understanding of, it was a little unclear to me, maybe the board has a better picture, it was a little unclear to me what exactly role they expect of the Frankfurt Plant Board to play in this physical arrangement. What would the, you know, my understanding is it's proposed that a solar facility would inject power into the plant board system. What role do they expect us to play in that part? I think we need to understand a little better. So anyways, that's where we're at on the analysis. Again, I'm talking to Craig tomorrow, so we can see if, you know, if it's appropriate to have a formal engagement with him on a study or not. We'll get his kind of initial input. So.
And I think, Gary, you had Penny reached out to you. Penny Peebler a week or so ago, and you told her we probably need about another 30 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, but since then, since the December 18th, the presentation now is almost, today is 16, it's almost months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we follow the, you know, detailed analysis for that. We probably, you know, I told her we need that, so maybe I need to really send her an email and say we do need to have more time.
And you tell her the board got an update tonight and that we're proceeding with an analysis?
Yeah.
If that's okay with everybody?
Yep.
Catherine?
Was NREL willing to go and plug in our new rates and make some other changes that we would suggest?
They said they're willing to take questions and take input from us, so yeah, I would assume so. I can't really answer why they didn't the first time. It may have just been a timing thing. You know, the changes were somewhat recent, you know, going back to July last year. So
They weren't that recent.
So are we? So essentially, we're analyzing it. We're thinking we might need 1898's help to analyze it and to plug in the numbers.
I think it would be helpful, yes, to use that new rate and understand what the savings. A lot of the report hinged on potential savings. Is that number accurate with their new rates? I think is the big question.
I mean, is there? I guess my question is, would it be helpful to go on and give that like immediate feedback and let them plug those numbers in? I just don't want to go spending a bunch of money paying $18.98 to do what NREL's sounded to me like at the meeting was willing to do. Like, is there anything we can give an immediate feedback to say, hey, could you go back in and plug in this number, stuff that we're very confident needs to be done, and ask them and let them go on and get that going.
Yeah, I think
I'd rather they do that than we, like Catherine said. I'd rather they do that than us have to to do something that's still not gonna be part of that may be different from what they come up with. So
Right.
they're gonna have to change the number to reflect our current rates.
I would
And
think,
the
yeah.
fact that we've done away with the municipal and gratis rates.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And plus that gives some immediate
yeah, it
feedback
gives
to
them
Penny.
feedback as to what we need to do. Yeah,
And I think we offered at that December meeting to provide them those rates at the time, didn't we? Or they actually acknowledged that they were aware of the rates, but just hadn't used them, correct?
That was the way I understood it, yeah, but we can clarify maybe with some more sporting detail. Here's exactly the rate. We could also give them their account information and just,
Yeah.
kind of make it easy.
Absolutely.
Here's all your
Send it all
accounts.
to 'em.
These are, a domain charge is applicable here, it's not here, that kind of
Right.
stuff.
There
That's,
are other part maybe potentially could be, we have to understand more and from their calculation to how to raise the saving.
Right.
You know, one of the assumptions I assume they put in is their cost saving from KYMEA because the currently KYMEA rate for member-owned generation credit, those things, right? But for us, looking forward,
Won't be
after
part of that.
2019, I'm not sure that's even
Right.
relevant
Right.
anymore, except, can be a different, if
Right.
we stay back to QMA as a full requirement customer, maybe it is. But if it's not, then there are a lot of something, I'm not sure they are accurate reflect the future. And we don't know, there's another part is there could be some saving from our future power supply? Maybe, but we don't have that in place yet. So it's very hard for us to create a solid number, what kind of saving depends on what a power arrangement would be.
Which is
I'm
also
not
gets
sure
in,
that makes
which
sense.
also gets into, well, it gets into that GDS assistance and the RFP to actually test rates and see what the market looks like.
Yes, but more fundamentally, the saving assumption based on PVI model, particularly it's not going to be applied, maybe only apply a year or two, particularly if a city plan to have a 20-year contract or longer. So you need to really looking for long-term benefit instead of looking just 1 or 2 years. There could be we are still with QMA, potentially you could have a 1 or 2 year benefit. But another part I was there in the meeting suggests, if you really want to confirm those savings, someone from Inrail City need to contact QMA directly.
Right.
Instead of say last mile something.
Right.
Because I think QMA going to respond very well if you say, that's my calculation, is that correct? You will confirm you either have those
Right.
savings or not. But to me, that's not probably irrelevant because if you want to have a 20-year agreement, that QMA maybe only 1 year or 0.
2 years, right.
Does that really make sense for the whole calculation? But I honestly, there are a lot of things I'm not really sure I understand truly what's calculation come out of it. I don't think they saw the detail model, or maybe I didn't spend enough time.
no, I mean, there was quite a bit of discussion about the wholesale power cost savings that really seemed to be central to their study. At least in the way I interpreted it, less so on our side. It seemed to be more focused on the wholesale power side. Maybe that wasn't the intent, but yeah, I agree with your point completely. I think understanding the number for the Frankfurt Plan Board savings is, we need to dig in deeper.
So basically, I mean, this is on for an informational item. The biggest thing is that you and Gary are proceeding with the analysis and that will come back to us before we formally respond back to the city and to NREL for us to take a look at.
Yeah, we can give them the initial data.
I would also
file.
ask the staff to go ahead and, like Catherine said,
Yeah.
go ahead and provide them the rates and the usage data and all that stuff so they can plug those numbers in like Catherine mentioned. I think that has to be done.
And reiterate
Yes.
what Gary did say
Yeah.
about contacting KYMEA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe even ask if they have.
Yeah, because Gary made that point that day of saying, you all really need to call KYMEA.
Yes.
Yes.
And we've made KYMEA aware of their report, but to our knowledge, they've not been contacted, correct?
Yeah, not to my knowledge, that
Yeah.
could be wrong, but.
Yeah.
So John, what about the legal, the statutory?
Well, that's the other
components?
part as far as the ownership and transmission, and would that, does the report envision a independent power generation? And can that be created, or, I think that's probably the discussion in terms of your legal research and your and maybe a discussion with Laura Ross.
That depends on how it's structured.
Well, I'm thinking of the initial response going along with Catherine's sending the information over the what we have. In this initial response along with that is all the I guess the initial concerns or the first thoughts about this proposal. And one of the first thoughts for me were, those statutory legal components out there. Has NREL put that in to consideration with this report?
And NREL made the point that day that they didn't do legal research, or weren't giving a legal opinion, correct?
I heard him now this time.
But the time, yeah.
Well, but the point is, I think we have to put that out front every time we talk about this, because we can get through everything, the numbers and everything else right, and then now you hit this other barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'd be remiss not to point out in our responses, what about the statutory legal implications, issues out there?
It depends on how the project is structured and the ownership of it. And we had Gary had sent a letter to the mayor, I think it was, last summer, discussing some of those questions.
Yeah, because NREL in that
And
kickoff
that's-
meeting, they'd asked for that legal research, didn't they?
And I can't recall.
Well, I
but
think
we
they did,
had
yeah.
we looked at a couple issues, but it goes back to the fact that when the project changes and the structure that, who owns what and who's selling what to who, that's going to change the legal analysis.
I
of it.
totally agree, but I don't want a third party watching the back and forth communications between the plant board and the city to get from that their interpretation to be that besides the numbers being right, everything else is okay. There is another question there, and we need to put that in that conversation to keep it on the table. Else, when someone's going to be looking at us and say, "Well, you should have said that," even though we said it, you should have said, just keep saying, And by the way, what about the statutory legal? Not in those words, but that needs to be alluded to, and every time we respond to NREL until we have an answer.
I'm not an attorney at all, so.
I think you've got one though.
Probably, Gary, probably based on what Steve would be helpful is, probably you and Hans ought to initiate a conversation with Laura.
I think it should be in writing.
Yeah.
It needs
In
to
this
be in writing.
initial
Yeah,
response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, as I understand, in Kentucky, currently, all the customers, which the city is one special customer to us, electric customer, they cannot purchase power other than their own utility.
Right.
That's otherwise called deregulation.
Right.
Which is we are not in.
Right.
There's no Kentucky law allow retail customer to engage purchase power from third party retail. Only people can do is like us, we are utility. Utility is the only group allowed to purchase power from a third party as a part of their whole portfolio.
The other point that Gary's made a time or two is, if it's the city's transaction, I don't represent the city.
Mhm.
I represent the plant board.
Right.
I'm not giving legal advice to the city. That's for that's for somebody else to look at. I can help. I can do what I want to, but I'm limited to representing this agency.
I'm not asking for I'm not giving them legal advice. I'm protecting our legal status.
Yeah.
That's that's what, I think that's what we need to make clear to the city, though.
Yes,
is
that's what I'm
you-
saying, that you asked,
know,
what, so we make known, keep on the table the potential legal statutory implications to protect our legal selves.
Well, once the city has or NREL or whoever comes up with the way it should work, I mean, I'm not seeing anything from NREL or anybody that says, here's a legal structure to look at.
Yeah.
I don't think it's our place to provide a legal
I'm not asking
structure
for
and
us,
say.
but I'm
We
asking
didn't
them
tell
for
them,
it.
we did tell them, you need to make sure you do this, I think
Yes.
is what Steve is saying. And I would, in any correspondence we have with them, I would just say, here's another issue that we're not gonna tell you how to do it, but if the city's worried about it, the city's gonna have to address these questions. That's what we wanna get out
And I
of this.
think, if I'm not mistaken, that there was an NREL report, one of the authors might be an attorney. I don't know if I know Travis, the latest version of that NREL report.
Yeah, no, not that I can recall, but they may have been, yeah.
So that might be a helpful resource to talk, sit down and see what they think about it.
Again, this is just about the communication to them of our response and thoughts. The initial one is we're gonna give them the numbers, and then say, by the way, you can say one board director had two, three or four, whatever, had concerns about the addressing of potential legal and statutory issues.
Yeah.
Of the structure of how it might proceed, so. So I guess at this point, Travis, if you can make sure they get the numbers.
Sure.
And then Gary, you and Hans, make sure, we communicate in writing with Laura.
Yes, in
And
writing.
then we'll have this back on, hopefully for a kind of a more definitive, hard discussion in February.
Yep, sounds good.
Before we say no, we will share that with you.
Yeah. Okay. That concludes, Gary, did you have any more information, or anybody have anything under old or new business? Okay, turn to Mr. Snyder for 11.1.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board go into closed session under three sections of the KRS. KRS 61.810.1G to discuss specific proposal that would jeopardize the expansion of a business if it were openly discussed. Also under KRS 61.810.1B, which involves a discussion of future acquisition of real property where an open discussion would likely affect the value of a specific piece of property. And finally, under 61.810.1C, which is a proposed litigation regarding a declaratory judgment on a territorial matter.
One other kind of add,
Okay.
anti-pancaking matter to that.
Oh, okay, and the de-pancaking matter as well.
Okay.
We did, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor of going into closed session to discuss the matters set forth by Mr. Snyder, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're going into closed. Let's take a 5-minute break and then. I need a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're back in open session. Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, we had no, we need to take no action from the discussions during closed session.
With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all.